Although I started my organization, Mothers and Men Against Senseless Killings, or MASK, it is not my first love. Genealogy is. It is the journey that I've been on my entire adult life. It is both my time machine and my crystal ball. Knowing where I came from is the compass that directs my life. I come from a family of survivors, and we have long committed ourselves to helping others survive too. I started an anti violence organization on the south side of Chicago. I watched the news, and of course, I had friends and just casual acquaintances who had all lost their children to gun violence. These parents tried their best to raise good kids who would grow into decent human beings, much like I did. They even prayed for them exactly as I did, and they were still lost. But I couldn't and wouldn't wait for someone else to fix the problem. I couldn't despair. I couldn't give up. That is never an option. I had to call on the ancestors to help me. I'm not talking about a seance and a Ouija board. I'm talking about some pictures and a lot of stories passed down through the generations. During the red summer of 1919, I had an uncle who had the audacity to be a college graduate in the state of Mississippi. He taught black farmers how to get the same agricultural grants that white farmers were getting. He was told to stop, but he wouldn't. Shortly after that, he was beaten, tarred and feathered, and advised that if he didn't leave Mississippi that very night, he and his family, which included a pregnant wife, would be killed. I remember learning about my ancestors who took part in organizing the first time black folks in Noxubee County would go and vote. Even though the Voting Rights Act had been passed by the federal government, it was still dangerous for black people to exercise this basic constitutional right in Mississippi. There, black folks would have civil rights meeting under the cover of choir practice at rural churches, so many of them attended, while the white sheriff would be sitting out front. Not to protect them, of course, but to make sure they were staying in line. Knowing how perilous this undertaking could be, the men participating in making Election Day safe and accessible for black people set up a chain of command. And they agreed if the captain was killed, the next man in line would take his place. They risked their lives so that we would have the right to vote. A few towns over, I had an aunt who also was mentioned in the Sovereignty Commission files, who owned a rooming house and a cleaner's. She and her husband were members of the NAACP and the SCLC, and they were responsible for finding shelter for freedom riders whenever they came through Greenwood, Mississippi, and surrounding areas. I grew up not only watching movies about the fate of black people in the South, I heard the stories from the people who were there and somehow got out. I ate dinner with the mammies, a woman who grew up saying yes, sir, and no, sir, and not looking white folks in the eye, taught me how to tie my shoes. History wasn't just all around me, it was in me. Chicago is tough and incredibly violent, but black people in America have always been in this struggle. So when it was my turn to fight for my survival and that of my children, I realized that so many others that came before me did. It's not just about me or mine. The good I do, the work I do, makes the world better and more just for me and for my kids, but for us all. Fear can never be an excuse not to do something. It's always been scary out there. And now for my block, for my city, for our world, it's time for us to remember what those who have come before us have given us. Not the house or the securities or even jewelry, but the most meaningful heirloom of them all, our courage. Thank you for this wonderful award. I so wish I could be there with you guys. Thank you guys.